This is a virtual reading of Conspirators, To Each His Own Agenda by Mag Gupta.
Chapter 33. Islesfield. The next day after their meeting, Alistair was fully coronated the Prince of Seaward. It was something of a non-event, as he had been the unofficial prince for many years now. With the coronation over, Falthor and Turgon followed their prince's orders and returned to Islesfield. Several days of Falthor's presence had helped the construction of the academy immensely, and the project was now nearly finished. Falthor had begun sending his men out into the Woodland Province to begin a recruitment drive. The Woodland Province was vast, highly populated, and almost completely unutilized. It was also far removed from the gaze of the capital. Raising an army of men of the woodland would be easy to hide from Ignatius. Unemployment in the east was rife as well. Those who weren't farmers and hunters had little to do aside from drink themselves stupid or simply waste their time gambling money they didn't have. Within a day of the recruitment announcement, nearly 2,000 men had arrived at Islesfield. Falthor watched them enter the fortress from the top stairway of the Great Hall. "This is going to raise some eyebrows," Turgon smiled, standing next to him. "Ignatius has never even crossed the river, let alone entered the woodland." Falthor grinned back. "He won't notice." "But they're not in the woodland anymore," Turgon reminded him. "They're slap bang in the middle of your fortress, the one place Ignatius has his eyes placed." "Which is why they won't be here for long," Falthor said. "We won't be building our army here. We have a base on the far side of Dacia. Once they have a week of training, they'll march there. It's so far removed that Ignatius won't notice them." "Even when 30,000 men are setting up camp?" Turgon asked. "Especially when 30,000 men are setting up camp," Falthor smiled. "When Ignatius sees troops massing here, he'll double the watch. That will be an even bigger problem when we start bringing in our nobles." Turgon grimaced as he exhaled deeply. Falthor couldn't help but laugh. It had been so long since he'd heard that word in relation to armies. He reflected on it for a moment in silence as the Dacian recruits filed into the fortress. Several years ago, the army had consisted purely of soldiers who belonged to landowning families or men who could subsidize their own weapons and armor. These were referred to as nobles. When Tathar was in his prime, he revolutionized the recruitment process by revoking this rule and allowing any kingdom citizen to be a soldier. The men flocked to his command overnight. Being a soldier was a good job after all. It meant that a peasant could travel the world, pillage, and enjoy foreign pleasures, all at the expense of the provincial government they lived in. The citadel was enraged by this, but in the long run it worked out, as squalor and unemployment dropped almost immediately, and many in the poorer regions were able to trade, albeit pitiful amounts, allowing the government to tax them. Tathar also introduced regimes to help strengthen his men. None of his armies ever had any animal labor like mules or wagons. All of his men carried their own gear, weapons, and camp provisions, even their disassembled artillery. This made him a brilliant infantry commander, and his works on army assembly was required reading in every academy. It did, however, create a divide in the army between the state-funded soldiers and the soldiers who could fund themselves. The nobles were, however, better soldiers, as they would normally have better weapons, armor, and training. Most of them would be cavalry or knights. The main downfall of Tathar's regime was that the first battle would almost always be devastating to his army. Training and exercise was one thing, and fighting was another. But once these initial battles were done, the army was suddenly a veteran force which could win any battle. In this area of the kingdom, the nobles would come from the Roma province near the capital, or from the border to Horseland, which unfortunately meant any troops would have to pass by the Marble City to reach Islesfield. Once they arrived, there would be no going back. Ignatius would know what was happening and would act against it. Do you think any of them will be as good as the Kingslayer? I doubt it. Falthor's mouth twitched to one side thoughtfully. He's one of a kind. Knights of the Sea Ward often are, Turgon smirked, since he's now Julius's bitch and all. He swore an oath to us, Falthor soothed after a moment's thought. I thought of following that road, but I'm convinced he's still loyal to our cause. Well, if Alistair gets his son on our side, then there's nothing to worry about, Turgon was unconvinced. Maybe we should up our bid on him. Falthor shook his head with a simple jerk. No need. He's content with what he has. He owes Julius a debt of friendship. He owes us a debt of honor. Julius is a man of the world. If Gilorn chooses us over him, I doubt he'll feel any wound. If you say so, Turgon sighed. But we have bigger cocks to handle at the moment. He nodded towards the main gate. An honor guard was pushing its way through the men coming through the gate. When they came into the courtyard, they saw it to be Aquilla. Oh, maybe not so big. Falthor sniggered, and then said in a sing-song voice, and again the man's allegiance shifts. Go prepare something that won't make him complain. I'll stall him for the time being. Turgon nodded, saluted, and then went into the main hall. My lord Aquilla, he smiled at his visitor after taking a painstaking amount of time to step down the stairs. Former consul, Aquilla smiled. Falthor ignored the insulting emphasis on the fact his title was in the past, and they embraced, clapping each other on the back. What brings you here? The same thing that brings all of these peasants here. Aquilla gestured at the mass of men coming through the gate. War. Oh. Aquilla looked around shiftily, observing the mass of troops. An interesting choice of troops. Men are men, Falthor said. But in war, we don't actually control our men. We unleash them. But let us not talk in cryptic fashion longer than is needed. What can I do for you, my lord? War is not specific to here. Aquilla chewed his lip nervously. The Citadel guardsmen who had accompanied him were smirking without restraint. I would prefer to talk in private. Very well, Falthor gestured to the hall. Aquilla proceeded up the stairs immediately. The guardsman followed him up. Falthor followed him in and gave a humoured but stern look to the guardsman, who nodded with even broader smirks and stepped back. I ask again, what brings you here? Aquilla sat down uncomfortably at the table. I need your help. And here I was thinking you simply liked my company, Turgon exclaimed, appearing from a corner of the room behind Aquilla. He clapped Aquilla on the back with a loud thud. General Turgon, Aquilla groaned. His voice showed little enthusiasm. So good to see you. I know, Turgon beamed. It is good to see me. I once saw myself in the river once. It took me a long moment to take in my own majesty. I really don't know how you all cope having to look at me all day. He posed dramatically, mimicking the painting of Falthor that hung on the wall behind him. Falthor chuckled. What do you need help with? He asked. Well, Aquilla shifted. His discomfort had only grown with Turgon's arrival. As you know, I've been given the command of the fleet to go against Gladium. Yes, Turgon poured himself a drink and slammed it down loudly on the table. We know. Ignatius's men have been screaming it from the rooftops. Well, Aquilla began to redden. I've been attempting to read up on military strategy, but I'm struggling with the formations and tactics. I was wondering if you could clarify some things. Such as? I've brought some notes on what I'm struggling with. Aquilla shrugged. All right then. Turgon snatched the notes from him. Give them here. Aquilla glanced hopelessly at Falthor. I was hoping that the consul could... A good leader finds ways to delegate, Turgon interrupted cheerfully. He read through the notes. I don't think I've ever seen that before. He held up a diagram of a formation of a 200-men-strong company. You're holding it upside down, Falthor observed, patiently. Turgon turned it over. Oh, right. It's a crescent. Are you sure you can't look over it? Aquilla pleaded. Turgon does have a point, my friend. Falthor smiled. He was enjoying Aquilla's discomfort. The commander doesn't have to take charge of the whole battle. The men under your command know their own formations and general sword-swinging antics. All you need to know is what your starting formation is and what to do when something major happens. Formations generally fall apart as battle goes on, Turgon explained. When the lines collide and begin to collapse, one side gets outflanked and a section collapses somewhere else. Then it just turns into a massive free-for-all. Kill or be killed. Often, you won't have any room to reform, so the soldiers involved just focus on winning that fight through brute force. The soldiers don't see formations. They see the enemy in front of them. It is your job to see a faltering formation and fix the problem before the whole line comes apart. Strategy does help, Falthor agreed. That's where the reserves come in. So where do I start? I hear tales of how great commanders can win a battle with having an unbeatable formation. How do I know which one to have? Experience, Falthor shrugged. I can walk you through standard military strategy, but instinct cannot be taught. You can only develop that through getting battles under your belt. Analyze your enemy and their own tactics. Many of the greatest generals in all of history were only ever great against one particular enemy. The San people have one particular set of tactics that the Kenshi don't use. If you're going up against the forces of Gladium, learn their tactics and study our ways of fighting against them. Do you know where to start? The Gladium section of the Citadel Library, Turgon smiled. Then try pirates. Then, oh shit, pirates. I believe there's a book entitled How to Kill Pirates. It is right next to 1,000 Ways to be Killed by Pirates. I'm sure there is, Aquilla grumbled, not impressed by the assumed sarcasm. No, he's serious, Falthor smiled. It's a well-documented piece of work in Seaward. If you want to learn how to kill pirates, go to the Seaward Academy. They specialize in fighting the pirates. I can't go back to Seaward, Aquilla said. Alistair wants to claim the throne. I cannot face him or be near him. It raises something in my blood. You nobles and your honorable deeds, Turgon laughed. Suck it up for now. The men under your command aren't going to care about awkwardness when they're dying, because you don't know what to do. Men die in war, Aquilla said. This was his answer. My father's cock. Turgon shook his head. You have no chance. Why? Aquilla demanded. Is it not a soldier's duty to die for their country? No. Falthor looked at him incredulously. It's a soldier's duty to get rich and bring that money back to their families. Oaths be damned, Turgon agreed. Men aren't going to fight for you if you don't give them something to fight for. You should really read up on General Arvin. That attitude didn't do him any favors. You're speaking blasphemies. No, Falthor said. We're speaking reality. Do the research and you will see. They were referring to a general who lived and died nearly 2,000 years ago, who was chosen to take the southern capital during an uprising. He was brutal to his men, inventing the capital punishment of decimation, which involved the death of 1 in 10 men when the punishment was called. It was his sole source of discipline, and when the siege came to pass, he claimed everything for himself. Within a day, those of his men that were left had their general killed. All 5,000 men lined up and stabbed him with a spear, even after his body had grown cold and he had more holes in him than blood. When they had finished, the officers cut him into pieces and nailed each one to a wooden cross as a rotting puppet. The remains were sent back to the capital, and the army set themselves up as a rebel kingdom, taking the city and killing everybody inside. The kingdom lost its only army, and the southerners claimed the city back in an instant. The Sand People launched an attack against the realm in retaliation and turned the kingdom into an empire with no grain supply. It was only the racial differences within the southern armies that defeated them and allowed the kingdom to recover enough to fight back. Aquilla turned away from this. What does history that long ago have to provide us with? Everything, Felthor smiled. Men will not follow you because you are nobility. Having an army is just like battling politicians in the citadel. They will follow me, Aquilla protested. I am the second to the steward. I am of noble blood. I am superior to those men. They know that. And what is that worth? Turgon spat. Somehow his flagon of ale had been refilled while he was talking. Your blood still runs red when you are cut or stabbed. You nobility don't bleed the gold you're so happy to flaunt around. He stood up from his chair and went around the table to face Aquilla. You came here to ask us for advice. Why did you do that if you weren't going to listen to what we have to say? I thought you would give me clear advice, answers that I could use to fight. Then here is one simple answer for you. Heed our advice, bury your dignity, and stop looking for a quick fix to your problems. Money and power are meaningless on the field. In that moment, you will only be worth the strength of your sword arm. I am a consul of the kingdom. And what will you be without the army behind you? You may think yourself better, but you are no different than the men you command. No army will follow you as soon as they see you for what you are, even if they are getting paid for it. Turgon stopped his lecture for a moment. He's not listening to us. Felthor shook his head despairingly, his only bargaining chip melting away before his eyes. This is getting nowhere. I agree, Aquilla stood up. I bid you farewell. He jerked his head irritably to the general and he left. His citadel guards did what they could to stop their laughter, but when Aquilla left, they bowed to Felthor and left after their lord. Well, that went well, Turgon grunted. Piece of shit, just like all the other nobles out there. Felthor raised an eyebrow, reminding Turgon of his own ancestry. You especially, Turgon added, raising his glass. It's a true tragedy that we simply can't watch him fail. Felthor sighed. He'll be in command of thousands of men. If he falls, so will they. What do we do then? Turgon asked, his face blank. We only have a matter of months or so before the fleet is amassed, and the men are ready for it. It's simple, Felthor folded his arms. We have to make him a legend, make the people and army love him. Either that, or we have to subvert his command and put the fleet in command of someone who can use it. Mistnir then? Turgon offered. Felthor nodded. He's the only one who has the skills with commanding at sea. How do we put him in command? Ignatius made it clear that he wouldn't put Seaward in the lead of this campaign. Then we need Aquilla to surrender his command to Mistnir. But he won't. This campaign is his only hope to achieving his level of power. Felthor nodded. I will think on it, but this problem will keep until tomorrow. He stood up himself and led Turgon out of the hall. They overlooked the men entering the fortress. They were being organized into untidy formations of 200 men. This is beginning to look like an army, isn't it? An army of boys, Turgon grunted. Look at them. He was right. Most of these men were unfit and had little muscle mass. The others were barely into manhood. Training these people into fighting men will take a while. We have time, Felthor grimaced. For now, I would rather have well-trained soldiers than rush this. Time runs out quickly, Turgon shook his head. Let's get to work. He walked down the stairs and took in a deep breath. Right, you bastards, he bellowed, making them all jump. Stop slouching or I will personally arse rape each and every one of you. The men all looked at each other. Take up formation, you sons of whores. Do you think I'm joking? Turgon shouted. He placed a hand on his sword. The men all sprung into position, and the formations became more square-like and rigid. Behold your master, he pointed at Felthor at the top of the stairs. Men of the woodland province, the general called. Dacians, you have been made part of this army to defend the realm from its enemies. You are the future of the kingdom's militaries. I will not lie to you. We face turbulent times. We are here to heal the kingdom through strength of arms, and you may find yourselves wondering if you are sitting on the right side of the fence. But your presence here is your agreement to follow us and not betray us. So if you want to leave now, I will most certainly not hold it against you. Those of you who remain will do everything in your power to ensure that your families will be safe. Make your decisions. He waited a full half a minute for a reaction. There wasn't one. Felthor nodded, satisfied, and then looked down at Turgon. Right. Turgon clapped his hands together. Lesson for today: how to not cut your own cock off.